Hello everybody, welcome back to From Rhythm to Algorithm. No real introduction, just getting going. If you are new from the shorts, been playing around with those, I've proven the consistency of language. We've identified a form of a solution, sensorality, basically why do you censor things. We're differentiating y that starts with a C versus y that starts with an S. And obviously this is part 135, so you have to go watch the other stuff. But in the general form of the solution, it is what it is. And so we're refining the definition of sensorality until we can solidify it and show how it's used in everyday conversation. So, what is an additive? Trying to work through, again, our mathematical operators, all of the different uses of language forms, or linguistical forms, right? Addition, additive, clearly a form of addition. Right, an additive, something you put into a milkshake or coffee, or just something you add to something else. Additionality, additionally, additive is directly related linguistically to addiction. Clearly, sensorality is addictive. My pool table is not going to get to it addicted to anything. Sensorization and Riz. So how is dark energy? Here's a good one, because remember, a theory of everything, or certainly a theory of language, has to encapsulate all of language. So slang, how is fundamental physics ever going to get to slang? But we see the preservation of syllability, the Riz, right? Charisma, sensorization. So it contains Riz, just how language works. But it literally connects the syllability of a slang word that just emerged within the past, 4 years or whatever, to fundamental axiomatic physics. But it has to. That's what I'm saying, is it literally has to. So it's not like, that shouldn't be like a wow factor, it just is. This is how language functions. But how about zippers and Euler discs, or Euler discs? It's just basically if you just take I don't know what you call it, like a cylinder, and you just like squish it down into like a little token almost, like a poker chip with just a little more depth to it, or height or width or whatever dimensionality you want to use, but a little thicker that, and just Google it. But if you just like spin it and it spirals down, again we having this intuition of a spiraling downward. So you spin a top, it's going to stabilize as it's spinning, and then as it loses momentum, it's going to destabilize. That's our intuition for spinning atoms and spinning electrons. They are spinning, that's why it's called spin. There's the consistency physically. But point being is it makes a certain sound. You zip up a zipper really fast, it zip, right? Onomatopoeia, we've covered that extensively. You have an Euler disc or a Euler disc, or however you say his name, and it, boom, 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 boom. And so that's some sort of, again, physical proof of, again, for certainly of destabilization. Right, it's easier to stabilize when you learn a bike, it's easier, it's hard to get going, but once you stabilize, you get that feeling. It's literally the phrase, it's like riding a bike again. But motion is easier. You form a stabilized dynamic, or a consistent dynamic stabilizes more so than stagnation. But if you don't move at all, it's harder to just sit on a bike stationary as opposed to ride the bike and balance. And so that sort of intuition, that physical dynamic of preserving a state of motion by motion is more effective than having a state of motion that's not moving. So I didn't explain that super well, but it doesn't really matter. I've explained all of these things. I'm just finishing up this proof. Pour versus pouring. And so now we have another this fundamental syllable of ing, which is our basis that relates to vibration. But you have a pour, a hole, your porous, your pores. So now you just chop off that e. It's very clear we chop off the e. We add ing. So now we have pouring. Now pouring like a glass of milk, P-O-U-R-I-N-G, but P-O-R-I-N-G. So what is pouring? To make holy, right? You're literally putting holes in things. Pouring is holy, right? Holy like a hole, not the religious context. Sensorality relates emotions to words. I'm a human being, I feel something, and I'm trying to express that to you. So that little, from that internal to that external, that's what sensorality is censoring your words, literally, right? That's what you do, is you modify what you say out loud based on what you feel. So that in between of your physical intuition, your body, your human being, your brain, you're processing information, you feel some type of way, and then you want to express that, and then you say it outwards, you vocalize it, or you think it, and so you say it outwards. But you're relating your physical state of feeling to words. Sensorality externalizes that process of filtration of censorship. What should I say? When should I say it? Projection is the opposite of injection. If you inject something, you integrate it, you add it. If you project, you externalize it. So projection is the opposite of injection. Again, playing around with do words always have natural opposites. Should they have natural opposites? Why? Why not? How about our entropy considerations? Geometry. We have to put all these pieces together for new identities, and it's basically the wild, wild west. The base of word is order, literally, right? We're talking about base and bases and basises. Whereas a verb, right, so if you bases, this bases that. Thematic space is mathematics. And if you have more than one base, you have bases. Still something going on there, doesn't really matter. But clearly you can see that word and then order. But see, now we're showing that iteration. Word, the ORD is the end of the word, and the ORD for order is the beginning of the word. So it's like this preservation of dynamic it goes over words, doesn't matter, pointing out the evidence, moving on. Because I said at the end of these proofs, like when you're really finalizing this, even though I've already done this whole process before, it feels like you know nothing. And I don't know why, but it's just because you're in this new territory, and it's like none of these words have feelings yet, so it's hard to, like, I don't even know what question I'm trying to ask right now, but the proof is done. I'm just trying to, it will smack you like a freight train. And it's like, how did I never see that? All scientific truth is blatantly obvious in retrospect. So just trying to work through all of this logic. What am I trying to ask? Ordered numbers end in the th. We covered that in ordinality, but mostly, right? And now, but that's like, and that's mostly, right? You come in first, second, third, fourth, fifth. So it's after like the third, and then right, 2 is stabilized, meaning we don't have access to that dynamic. 3 is the only dynamic we've ever been in, hence the overwhelming prevalence of the Trinity, or we live in 3 dimensions, or third time's a charm, or there's no word for thrice, or thrice isn't a word. All of these different aspects of where 3 is the open dynamic. Black bodies radiate, you exchange energy through, and it's related to mass. But the word, right, so a lot of these ordered words end with a th, but now does that apply to words, right? Word, worth, right? Worth is value. So can we make some sort of connection between because clearly we're preserving the syllability of that sound, and so th at the end of an ordinal word, does it have any sort of relation or generality or specificity to word and worth? What is worth matters, right? Worth has value. Value matters. Last episode was what matters? Worth. So we've done some sort of logical connection there. And again, it's important to know, like I said, this derivation for me was 2 days ago. But it's not, I'm not trying to say, wow, look at me, I do a lot of mathematics. But when you iterate and you get the intuition, it's not just I'm like looking at the words and just calculating letters. It's like I understand, it's going through a process of understanding as well, and true realization. It's like I have the same amount of cycling, like when you finish your PhD, and 7 years of work or whatever it takes you to do your dissertation, there's a sense of relief in like starting over at the end, correct? And so like I go through that whole process like 5 times every single day, and it's not an exaggeration. And so these proofs feel old to me, and it's 2 days ago. And so it's like I've already on to new stuff. But worth matters. And so what can we make of that? Sensorality withholds. Again, now we have another one of these amalgamated prepositions where it's just 2 prepositions just literally stuffed together. But withholds. To withhold something is to censor something. Logically consistent. Enunciation is articulation. Again, it's not clear to me. Pronunciation to me is like the ideal. It's like the thing you want to, how a word's supposed to be articulated properly. And then enunciation with an E is the act of attempting pronunciation. And so most pronunciation is not enunciated correctly. But right, articality is what one of the episodes is called. The general thing of when do you apply an article, a and the in English. And now how does that relate to articulation, right? Articulating, speaking. Articles, articulation, articulationality. And so clearly they're related. What is the relationship? And not just, again, I can extend the article articulation or articulationality. I can do that all day, every day. It's not even a thing, like a meaning. It's not even an insightful thing to me anymore. But what's going on there? What is the relationship of power and tension? Power, I don't even know, like off the top of my head, what the accepted definition is now, but it has to relate to tension somehow. Remember, again, tension stores our energy. Tension replaces potential energy. You remove something from equilibrium, it's going to have a natural tendency to return to that equilibrium. The reason you use tendency is because it's a form of tension. And so it's so hard to like talk about the consistency of language when language is already consistent and you have to use language to talk about it. And then you're talking to a bunch of people that if you don't prove them 14 things in 2 seconds, they just shut down. But, so how does tension and power relate? More power, more momentum. So if if you're tightly coiled, you have the potential for more power. And potential has use, but it's not potential energy. And so what is the relationship there? Here's a quick proof. What separates a minimum and a maximum? A medium, right? Language is consistent. Think about it. What is a medium, right? If I go buy a shirt, it's a medium. What is it? It's like average. Okay, so, but minimum, maximum, what's in the middle? Medium. Logically and linguistically. Medium, maximum, minimum. Momentum. And so when they say language is inconsistent or mathematics is inconsistent, it demonstrably is. It's already been demonstrated. Every time anyone speaks, it's demonstrated. Literally. But that is a complete quick proof. Eradication, erratic. You drop the, right, and there's another one of those things where it's like the sound doesn't really give you any indication, but the letters do. Eradication has a D, and erratic, like if your behavior is erratic, crazy, unpredictable, is with a T. And it's with 2 R's. And then eradication, where it should be clear that eradicate is kind of like, you would think it would be related to erratic, but erratic has 2 R's, eradication has 1. And so, but again, more importantly, we're using that T and that D, just like absorption goes from a B to a piece for some reason. Something going on with the T and the D. And there's probably more out there. Oh, there's certainly more out there. And so again, just what can we... There's so many new questions to ask, and I'm sitting here in my mom's basement when I should be running a university. Because if I could do this in a group of people, it would be amazing. And by a group of people, I mean I'm literally posting these videos on the internet, so you can just drop a comment. We could do science, but then I do all the science really fast. What is censorship? Eradicationality, right? If you eradicate something, you're censoring it. You're removing it. So eradication is a form of censorship. And it's very true. Look at history, right? Group A meets Group B, and they don't like Group B. What do? They try to kill them all. Like, we're brutal apes. It's funny, but it's not. But it's true. But elimination limits. If you go kill that guy, he can't snitch on you in court. Probably shouldn't do that. It's probably not a good thing. But it's true. It's objectively true. And I'm also commenting on like the emotion, right? Motion and emotion. All of these things apply to emotion as well. And so the emotion generates because of that. If you're in a state of tension, as 21 Savage once said, I'm going to paraphrase here, but yeah, I think he says, I don't walk around with tension, I send hits. And I'm trying to use the N-word a little less, but I don't really care. I just don't want to get banned on YouTube before people see my stuff. But he doesn't walk around with tensions, he sends hits. But so it's like, it's very true. It's not really funny to randomly kill people, but the natural biological instinct to disrespect is to neutralize that threat. It just is. But now we did something very sly the other episode, right? Needles, needlessly, needle sly. What is life? Life is proliferation. Again, look at the word. The solutions always look the same. Proliferation contains the word life completely. And life does proliferate, right? That's pretty characteristically, evidently true. And so we come to this logical thing, because I said very intuitively, instinctually, freestyle improv. that speciality differentiates, which that part is axiomatically true. But then whenever you add any word, syllable, sound, anything, a slight accent mark over here, it could change everything. I don't know. But you have to go through these considerations. And so speciality differentiates. Speciality proliferates. And I said sensorality does not. But then sensorality has to contain entirely and completely the definition of speciality. So proliferation. Life proliferates. But then I said sensorality doesn't change. Speciality change, modifies. Very clear as to what that is. Wearing a blue shirt, dyeing your hair, the entire conversation of sexuality and identification with pronouns. That is speciality in its core. And again, I'm not commenting on politicals, that's right, which again, I've already commented on that proven that in the language linguistics, or language litigation and integration series. Obviously, transreal, there's biological differentiation of all things, gays, real, trans, real, it's all real. And then, more importantly, it's the wow factor to me is all the people that care about who humps who. I don't care. but the point being is that is speciality, differentiation. And then sensorality, what is it? And that's what we're trying to figure out is what is that definition? It has to contain speciality, it has to contain the concept of proliferation, but it can't change. And so, what's kind of going on there? Because it's very clear that speciality proliferates. Sensorality has to contain that concept, that logic, but it has to be different than speciality and more comprehensive. And so how does that resolve? That was a very clear, everything I said, to me it's like 1 + 1 = 2, absolutely correct. 2 + 2 = 4, absolutely correct. 4 + 4 = 300 million, 700,000. So what am I doing wrong there? Or again, what piece of evidence am I missing to resolve that apparent inconsistency? And we've already proven that inconsistencies, contradictions, paradoxes do not exist. The complexity, the confusion comes from ourselves. The universe is simple. It always has been and always will be. It's our job to figure it out. So finishing up today, sensorality is scientificality. So now again, we've proven the consistency of language, of logic, of physics, and now we're going to categorize and prove and encapsulate the entirety of science. What is science? Well, it's sensorality. And so it's not even going to say anything there. But right, science, right? It's a form of sense. S-C-I-E-N-C-E. Take out the C-I, and then you have that S-E-N-C-E. And our senses, S-E-N-S-E, we've iterated to that C and to the S. What is science? Science, senses. Senses produce science. So again, clear as day that those are related. And so we just have to finalize that. And again, remember, it's not going to change anything. It just provides you the logic as to why these words are here. We already know what the solution looks like. It's saying that sensorality, when you say censorship, and you put it with a C, and you block out the boobies, that's censorship with an S. And when you go look at your washing machine and it says it's sensing and there's a big S on there, that's wrong. That's already what the proof is going to establish definitively. But it doesn't fucking matter. Practically. No. Right? I can ask you, how is your day going? And if you said good, you answered incorrectly. Logically, you're supposed to say, well, I'm doing well. You're not doing good. Does it fucking matter? No. So again, you've already seen what this proof is doing. 5 years of continuous derivation publicly, the entire From Rhythm to Algorithm series, the entire language litigation and integration series, all of my emails, all of the things you watch me outside of talking to a camera, all of it. And so it's like this, the wow factors is going to prove something else. Again, pairing a verb to a preposition entirely. Or, again, something, the result will be massive, but it will be something that you've never really thought about, extremely simple. And then the actual differentiation of sensorality is trivial in terms of what it practically accomplishes. But how does rhythm regulate stability? We talked about extensively in the beginning how riding a bike, just go ride a bike, that is how rhythm stabilizes or relates to stability. Motion, it's easier to stabilize while in motion. And rhythm is the most efficient thing to regulate momentum, so the more rhythm you have, the more stability you have. And I did not explain that super well at the beginning. But again, I feel like I said, how do you start a conversation? How do you sit down in front of a camera and pick up a proof that you're already on part, like, you already missed the first 12 years of this when I was like from 10 to 22 or 9 to 21 or whatever. So it's like, wouldn't you, like, where do I start? What do I do? I'm just putting it together the best I can. But splitationality, right? So I said, why splitting? And these words aren't random. They just come to me, and it's like, they're all relevant. So the intuition, it's like I'm already starting where the intuition is like pushing me. But split, all right, to split, if you have a slit, the double slit experiment, split, and so now we're expanding that word. So if we see, we've already, the quantum mechanics measurement problem has been done. That's like the first thing I solved. But what cannot be split is irreducible. So we've proven this concept of irreducibility, and I simply stated it for linguistics. You can't reduce words past certain points and still retain empirical meaning, which is evidently true. So at this point, we're kind of, I think we're reproving irreducibility, which is, again, historically what was recognized as indivisibility, but it's irreducibility is the entirety of it. Right, the limit of indivisibility. How low can we go? Which is, how big is a lot bigger than how small is small. We already said that. And I just want to finish, the last thing I have is, can any word have more than 2 root words? So that basis, again, the fundamental stability of 2, how does that rigorously manifest with words? Right, if I look at the word, I'm picking random things, right, stability, right, it's very clear that the word is ability. And then again, you can cut it down to a particle or article and say a, and cut it down to a vowel and say I as a complete word. But those always brush over me again intuitively. I've not articulated it properly, rigorously. But can you have more than 2 words? Like ability is clear there, right? We did solid, and then darity, where it's like you use up all of the letters there, and so there's no like extra prefix or suffix on either words. It's just 2 complete words. But then there's some words I don't have any examples where it's like 2 complete base words, but then there's still a little bit of prefix or suffix on one of the words. And so what exactly do we say about our iteration? How is language iterating? Clearly it is. What identities, properties, in general can we make? And then the big money shot is the axioms. When you fundamentally, again, we're refining the solution of what is sensorality. And it'll just be a fundamental connecting thing that's undeniable. So that is it for today. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one on our quest for our axioms.